A brilliant and most important work that shows a complete loss of humanity in the American South, 1930s, by way of a character study. Let's get to it. Hey y'all, everyone who reads and must converse is the channel. I'm Noah, thanks for coming back by. I read Light in August earlier in the year, and it's taken me a while to wrap my head around talking about this book because it is completely heartbreaking. Joe Christmas's character is one of these things that you're not prepared for. And what an ironically, light name, right? Faulkner does everything he does in this book masterfully. We start off with one of the greatest openings of any Faulkner novel I've ever read. Lena Grove is on a mission. She's on a quest. We meet this girl, Lena Grove. She's a young white woman that's pregnant, traveling alone. Comes off at a little kind of a way station where people are gathered that are traveling, but also selling, buying, whatever, right? But she's just traveling across states, says, she's been traveling for days, weeks, and she's just keeping going. She's looking for a guy. And everybody has these preconceived ideas when they approach Lena. It's really, really perceptive what Faulkner does there with the openings, and you're rooting for Lena and all these kind of things. And you see other people are too. Everybody is willing to help her out. And she is picked up and taken to a place. It's so beautiful. I believe his name is Armistead. Armistead is a black guy. And his wife, they have a little place, a farm, this kind of thing. He picks her up, knows Lena has nowhere to stay for the night, picks her up and takes her home and knows his wife is not going to be happy about it, right? But the character of Armistead's wife is brilliantly done. It's, half a chapter that this character, and she is one of these people that has lived a very hard life and cannot give to another person without feeling, doing it forcefully and doing it with aggression. And it's a beautiful thing in a way to see that thing work out on the page, that Faulkner understands this kind of person, and that ultimately they have in their heart a desire to help out their fellow human being. This kind of thing it's a joy, but it's also, it's tinged with this foreboding. Of course, she's traveling alone, pregnant. Her man obviously has ran away from her, has no intentions of coming back for her or something like this, although that's the story. And she's just like ignorantly going along. And it's kind of a comedy in this kind of way. And I wanted more of that. And she gets to a town called Jackson. And in Jackson, we meet the main characters. And this book is not told in a very linear fashion, but I'm going to go through this in a more linear way. What it is a character study of Joe Christmas, who, when you meet, is a very off-putting person. You don't want to talk to him. People are kind of put off by him. Why has he got that mean mug on his face? And you assume, as most people assume, he's a white guy. He is racially ambiguous. There's, some people think he's a foreigner or call him out as that. But for all intents and purposes, when most people are dealing with him, at least on the work, and in that first chapter, everybody, just kind of assumes he's a white guy, including the reader. But you get a sense pretty quick that things aren't right with Joe. He's, like I said, a very off-putting person and not very approachable, and looks to be not a guy you want to be friends with and this kind of thing. But like I said, this is not a linearly told story. So we go back, we start getting Joe's childhood, Joe's upbringing, Joe's coming into manhood. And the scenes and the story ends up being the story of a very neglected, unwanted, ultimately unloved individual in the American South 1930s, and ends up being a hollow husk of humanity, where any kind of thing that is compassion or love or humanity itself inside Joe is left to starve, completely left to starve on its own or attacked. Joe is an orphan when he's a child. And this is the kind of thing Faulkner is very smart with how he does his, with how he brings something to the knowledge of the reader. So Joe is a very innocent young child, and he's stealing, toothpaste. He's eating toothpaste, and he's snuck into where the toothpaste is, and he's eating it. And this is where a teacher, somebody who minds the orphanage, maybe a nurse or a teacher or something, is hooking up with another individual, a male and a female, in a room right by where Joe is hiding. So he overhears conversation and overhears them, hooking up. He doesn't know what they're doing. He's like, 4. But they find him and introduce and bring him into conversation. The teacher does, trying to, diffuse the situation. And Joe has no idea what she's talking about. And it ends up going kind of bad for Joe. And that's the way that everything works out for Joe. The decisions that are made and the way that situations work out for Joe are not in Joe's favor. So the kids in the orphanage call him out as being black. Just know that I'm going to say a black man, a black boy, this kind of thing in this video. But Faulkner doesn't use that terminology. He uses much stronger and striking terminology that, I'm not going to say, but also drives home exactly where we're at and what kind of what the nature of the culture that Joe is trying to find himself in, because that's what this book is ultimately about. He's trying to find himself. Who is he? And even as a child is asking the black help that maintain the grounds at the orphanage, how come you're a black man? How come you're black and other people are not, and things, trying to figure something like that. And the guy just rips into him. He goes, well, at least I know I'm black. Nobody knows what you are. And Joe has no idea what he's talking about, right? But you as a reader know, and it's sad because he never is going to be told compassionately by somebody with his best interests in mind what his situation really is before he was even, born, when he was conceived, right? And we don't even know the details of that as a reader. Religion is played very hard and striking in this. The family is played very hard and striking. Okay, like Joe's father is completely indifferent to him. There is a way that, he's trying to look out for him and trying to give Joe an okay shot at life, but he just screws up and ends up getting put in jail for it. Why? Because he doesn't want to claim Joe. That's the whole thing, is like not wanting to claim Joe, not wanting to align yourself with Joe because of his race or mixed race is a hard line that destroys Joe's humanity ultimately in this book. It's so sad. I'm not going to go too much more into it without spoiling, okay? Because this book was written in 1932. It can be spoiled, so I suggest you read it before going any further, all right? When it comes down to it, Joe is very ignorant. The way that he's taught is something that is insufficient for his situation. His adopted father is a very, hard-nosed Christian where religion is basically the chastening rod. And we understand that kind of look towards, fundamentalist Southern Baptist, Southern Christian in that way, where it would be very hard-nosed, very black or white, and spare the rod, spoil the child for sure. Joe ends up making some bad decisions, but when he's doing bad decisions, there's nobody there to foster and to help him turn it around and make the right decision. Ultimately is isolated and alone. So after Joe makes a horrible decision, a level of desperation and despair set in for Joe. He doesn't want to give up his life, but he has murdered the adopted father that he had. And Joe is then, he's forced to strike out into the world, and he finds a place that he has no place in. He goes out, he goes around, there's a series of like a montage of him going through different parts of the country. And he ends up back in Jackson because there's no place for him. He gets a job at this sawmill, and he's working down in the sawmill. And that's where we found him at the beginning of the book, right? What is happening is he's living out off on a property, and a woman's property that's single, and he is kind of her little boy toy. And the racial the racial implications are for front and center, because this woman is a very smart woman, and has a very easy life, but there's something, she's playing with Joe, and she does care for Joe, but Joe is kind of a kink for her, right? And Faulkner understood this and has this in some of his writing, of course, right? That there's a kink to interracial sex and things like that, especially at this time, right? That it would be something that would be taboo. And so it's there because it happened. It happened for Joe to make Joe, right? And now Joe is in this situation where Joe is really still trying to find himself, and he is unable to be. He's unable to be himself without a label, and a different label for everybody. He knows himself to be this a being that is more, but all that gets destroyed completely. It's so dark and desolate. And in the end, when I think of Joe Christmas as a character, it is a skeleton. It is a human that is devoid of anything, because he has been completely dried and blasted. There's just nothing there. It is so sad and has a lot to say about what human beings do and what humanity does, just as a normal course of action when we get locked into generalizations and making assumptions about people, and we can't stop doing it. We have to do it more consciously. And that's what this book really brings out, is all those little ways that assumptions and generalizations about people are made. Everybody in this book has those things first and foremost when they're dealing with somebody, especially for the first time. It's amazing. It's definitely one of my favorite Faulkner books, but so is The Sound and the Fury. So is As I Lay Dying. I'm so happy that I read it. Please let me know any thoughts that you have. I'd love to talk more, and I could go into many aspects of this book, but I thought since this is what really Faulkner did with this book, I thought it worth it to make a dedicated video really talking about that. There's not a lot of people talking about the bleakest book, the bleakest American classic, Light in August by William Faulkner. So here you go. Thank you very much, BookTube. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.